Hi, I'm Jay McClellan with Fortune Bay Expedition Team, and this is the third episode from our Hidden Waterfalls of Northern Ontario expedition, where we reach the two northernmost waterfalls of our trip. In the last episode, we visited Feagle Falls, northeast of Nakina, and now we go farther to reach Feagle Falls, and then up northwest of Araland to find Amy Falls. After reaching Feagle Falls, we drove back on the overgrown trail and reached the road on which we had driven in. To continue our adventure, we needed to get back out to the Waba Road, but we were hoping to avoid backtracking too far, so we tried to find a shortcut. There was a shorter route on our map, but some beavers had decided it would be a good spot to build a pond, so the road sort of disappeared at this point. As we surveyed the situation, one of the homeowners came out to greet us. We wouldn't be able to drive through here, but at least we got to see the beaver up close. As we watched and filmed, it just swam in lazy circles in front of us. Clearly it was aware of our presence and wasn't the least bit afraid of us. I had the distinct impression that it was saying, "This spot is occupied, so go build your own lodge somewhere else." I was hoping it might give us a tail splash, but once it seemed sure that we knew it owned this site, it just calmly slipped below the surface. Our shortcut wouldn't work, so we had to backtrack out to the Waba Road. We saw a lot of ptarmigan up here, and they didn't show up very well on the dash cam, but here's a shot I got of one later on in the trip. When we stopped in Nakina for fuel, we asked some locals about this area, and we only met one person who had even heard of Feagle Falls, and she had never seen them. From the satellite imagery, it looked like it would be worth the effort if we could only get close enough to be within hiking distance. We reached some areas that had been logged, and I was actually dreading this part of the trip, having to drive through these clear-cut areas, because from looking at the satellite imagery, I imagined them to be desolate and destroyed by the logging activity. But it was surprisingly beautiful up here. Not as beautiful as a pristine forest, but there were wildflowers and small ponds and a lot of regrowth where the trees had been removed. It was actually one of the more interesting areas we drove through on the trip. Again, not saying it's as nice as a pristine wilderness, but we were definitely glad we drove up here. Eventually we reached the end of the road, and we could have pressed on a bit further, but it was getting pretty rough, and we were only about 0.6 kilometers from Feagle Falls at this point. I decided to stop and send the drone up to check it out. My first impression was that this was certainly a doable hike, but it would have been difficult and slow going to hike through this thick undergrowth. The drone made it out to Feagle Falls, and it did look spectacular, so we were definitely going to it one way or another. I turned the drone around and started to scout the surrounding area to see if there was any way we could drive closer. I spotted some old skidder tracks and an area that had been logged some years ago, so it was a bit more open and looked like we could drive over in that direction at least. So we relocated our vehicles to the other side trail where we'd begin our half-kilometer bushwhack to the falls. The road to Feagle Falls is long and winding. Oh, kind of cool in here. We were harassed by swarms of little midges here, but at least they didn't seem to bite. These are good. Well, this is fun, but there are just a few bugs out here. Too annoying to wear the head net though. I think our bushwhack, the Feagle, is still not in a straight line, but not too bad. Maybe better than last time. I think if we go straight down the hill, we'll just end up downriver from the falls. I'd say I hear them, but you know, it's wind in the trees maybe. I don't know, we're pretty close. Well, the portage trail isn't too bad. Yeah, we're definitely getting way downriver, but let's just go downriver anyway. We are close. Very close. I can smell them. I can see them, kinda. All right, now I gotta get downhill. After we left Feagle Falls, we camped for the night and then made the long drive down to Nakina, over to Airland, and then northwest toward Amy Falls, which would be the most remote destination of our trip. Despite the late rain, it was a nice drive, and once again we passed through areas that had been logged, but were beautiful in their own way. Well, hey, somebody's been through here, I'd say, this morning. This road would only take us within about 3 kilometers of Amy Falls, so when we reached the end of the road, we sent up the drone, and it did not quite go according to plan. Amazon Intrepid drone pilot has just gone too far. We went farther with the drone, got to Amy Falls, but we did not get back, and now we're on a recovery mission to get the drone where it hopefully sort of soft landed. So we have a bushwhack, and only about 500 meters of bushwhack. Well, at least we have an interesting hike out to recover the drone through this newly created quote-unquote road. The loggers have been busy. We're kind of lucky they aren't actively working right here at the moment, though they might be when we come back. And they'll probably think we're nuts, which is essentially accurate. We go farther, but sometimes too far. So that's the end of the road. And that's going to be a road someday, but not today, so that's what we got to get through. The drone controller shows the GPS coordinates of its last known position, so we knew where it set down and right where to go, but it was tough finding any reasonable route through these thick woods. This is some of the thickest stuff we've been through. I sure hope it's not all like this. Oof. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a hole right, well, there's holes everywhere, but I found one. Yeah, just watch out for that foot-shaped hole I just made.
Yeah. Now, he'll just let
I slipped kind of down in that, so.
Yep.
You see what I mean?
Whoa.
Piece of cake, huh?
Yeah. That.
So we've come up on our creek crossing, water crossing of some kind. It doesn't look too bad. Sounds like a waterfall, but it's just kind of little rapids. Just make sure your pole is well set before you trust it.
Try to do that all the time.
I'll come help if you need it, but I think you're fine. And just don't bump the camera. In the middle of that moss is good.
Just swing out.
Well, we won't run out of food. We got blueberries. Well, at last our drone search and rescue has resulted in a recovery, maybe even a rescue. Just offhand, it looks like it kind of soft landed in these bushes. And yeah, I think we have recovered the lost footage of Amy Falls. Well, here we are, Fortune Bay Expedition team on some unnamed beaver pond, having just completed the lost drone recovery hike. I would not presumptuously go so far as to say that it was worth it just for the scenery, but the scenery definitely made it better. And we got birds too.
But go to the right.
We decided to take a little different route back in hopes of maybe finding a little easier path. And in the end, it was not any easier this way, but we did get to see some different things, and that was definitely interesting. Okay, through that. Well, we're still on course.
Okay. I got it.
I can help you across if you need. There you go. Perfect. Well, our progress is slow.
Really? Huh.
But basically in the right direction. The blowdown of despair. Well, it was a tough hike, but in the end it was successful, and we saw some really cool stuff along the way, so that made it worthwhile. More importantly, we recovered the lost drone footage of Amy Falls, so here it is. We drove as far as we could down the road and stopped here. Obviously, we couldn't drive any farther. And at this point, according to the GPS, we were about 3 kilometers from Amy Falls. So I sent the drone up, and you can see the road to the right here. That's where we had to hike down as we were recovering this drone footage. And now you can see kind of in the distance there that marshy area looks like a large beaver constructed area. And so we hiked along the edge, and the drone was recovered right about here. Here's where we crossed the stream. and then you can see the terrain beyond that where there's just a lot of blown down timber and kind of thick stuff, but not too bad. Now we're heading toward the falls from there, and we're considering possibly doing another expedition next year to hike all the way to the falls. So this is what we'd be hiking through, and it's certainly not insurmountable. We can do this, especially if we can avoid some of the lower areas around these little lakes. And it looks like off to the left, which is where the falls are, it's a little bit higher terrain. And so I think it would be reasonable hiking. It still would be slow going because these are thick woods and we can't really change that. But at least if we stick to some of the higher areas, and it looks like there are some ridges over there, I think it would be reasonable to get out to the falls and get back possibly in a single day. We may want to hike along the edge of some of these lakes just to see them because they look quite cool. Now we're approaching Amy Falls off on the left. And so you can see, again, it's kind of a marshy area. And if we're going to hike this, we'd have to plan a route around this because it would be really tough going through this wetland below us. Now we're coming up on the falls, and I'm going to stop talking and play some music and just let you enjoy them. Certainly had an adventure today, even though it wasn't the adventure we thought we were going to have. Saw some really interesting terrain around here. So after doing a tough bushwhack to recover the drone and that lost footage of Amy Falls, we headed south to find a place to camp for the night. Once again, we survived. Even our drone survived mostly. That pretty sky.
Yeah. Right up here. Or right coming up.
We found this great riverside campsite, and the light rain soon stopped and the clouds started dissipating. By evening, the sky had almost completely cleared, which was very fortunate because we were about to get a light show. I took this photo of the aurora above the river at our campsite, and these colors are the actual colors. It was not this vivid to our eyes because our eyes weren't sensitive enough to pick up the color, but with a long exposure, I was able to capture this image in my camera, and I did very little adjustment afterward, so these are the colors as they actually were. I also took a time-lapse video using the GoPro, and hope you enjoy it. Well, we hope you enjoyed episode 3 of our Hidden Waterfalls of Northern Ontario expedition and our journey to find Feagle Falls and Amy Falls. In the next and final episode of this expedition, we'll travel south to find more hidden waterfalls, including Cascade Falls, Gomar Falls, and Gorge Creek Falls. And then we finish up at a beautiful waterfall on the Gravel River. It's a very different part of Ontario with some amazing scenery, so we hope you'll stay with us as our adventure continues. Thanks for watching.